because the person can go through denial, anger, bargaining, and come back to denial. The person can get up to acceptance and come back to denial. So when the person keeps going through this vicious circle, then the person needs to get a professional to help them process their pain properly. Now, denial, the emotion associated with denial is avoidance, confusion, elation, shock, fear. And how do you know the person is in denial? It's not possible. This thing can't happen to me. It's from what they said. It's a lie. It cannot happen. I remember when I lost my brother. It was the life of the party in my family. We could not I couldn't move him to the mortuary because I just felt that if we prayed enough, that boy will come back to life, but it didn't happen. So that is a point of denial where I'm like, I cannot believe it. I'm a child of God. He has made these promises to me. No. But then anger is the next stage where you're feeling frustration, irritated, you're even angry with God at that point, and you're feeling very anxious. The next point is bargaining. Struggling to find meaning. Why did it happen? Maybe there's a reason. Maybe this person didn't do what they were supposed to do. Maybe I didn't do well in my job. Maybe I could have done better. Maybe I could have compromised. Maybe I should have, just trying to make understand what is going on. And then depression. You feel overwhelmed. You don't want to get out of bed. You just don't want people around you. You're just helpless. You're hostile. Sometimes you just want to run away from yourself. And then the last one is acceptance. When you realize that it has happened, what do we do? How can I move on from here? Can I remember the person for the good things? Can I remember my job for the experiences that I had? So that's what happens when we, those 5 stages. So it's important for us to encourage, allow people to grieve. Let them know that you're there with them. Let them feel just the safety of being there, holding their hand. If, of course, with permission, it's enough. You don't need to say anything. Don't feel pressure to say something. Just let them know that I'm here with you. Cry with them if you need to. Whatever you need to do with it, then don't truncate their grieving process. Now, the third one we are going to look at is trauma. Trauma is the most ignored, avoided, denied, misunderstood, and untreated cause of human suffering. And that's because now trauma is now a new buzzword. You have a hard day at work, you say, I went through a traumatic experience. No, I think it's abuse. That word is really abuse. Trauma is very stressful. Don't let anybody, it's very, very stressful. However, not all stress are traumatic. If I'm going through an overwhelming experience at work, maybe because I haven't met a deadline or I was given a deadline and the time frame and the resource is not available, you have to think and strategize on the way forward. That's not traumatic. That's just work that has happened and stress that you need to manage. You're in traffic and somebody is out there, doing what they want to do, being a king of the road, and you're like, oh, this person is traumatizing. It's not trauma, it's just stress. So let's be able to manage, understand what stress and trauma is so that we don't get stuck in the meaning and lose the essence of what is going on with us. So trauma, from my own definition of trauma, is a shocking or an overwhelming effect of an experience that defiles human reason or rationality. It challenges your belief, challenges who you are, what the values that you hold on to. So there are 4 responses. Is either we are running away, fighting, we are fighting ourselves or fighting other people, we are running away, flight. Freeze, when we are frozen. I know the first week that we had this, I told you when I went through my own traumatic experience, I was frozen. I was just going around. I knew that I had obligations, so I wasn't feeling anything. So when you freeze, you're immobilized, you cannot move from where you can't even think. And then fern is when you start to please people so that they don't traumatize you. Oh, I'm going to be nice to Pastor K so that he cannot traumatize me. Maybe it's my boss at work, so that he doesn't traumatize me. But what you're doing is that you're hiding your authenticity. What we do is that because we're trying to cope with the trauma we're experiencing, we wear masks. And when we wear a mask, we hide our authenticity. and we can't actually be who we are supposed to be. Now, trauma can alter the way our brain's ability to regulate emotion, and that leads to symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. So healing from emotional trauma takes time, it takes effort, but it's possible with the right support and resources. Now, I know we know about when people are talking about trauma, some of the things that come to our mind is rape and violence, domestic violence, and all that. But today, I just want to talk about the subtle form of abuse that people experience daily, and that because you've experienced it the first time, it comes again another time, you're exposed to that kind of, and before you know it, you think it's the behavior. But that is not a behavior, because over time, it now erodes your self-esteem and self-worth, and you don't even know how you're feeling. You can't really explain how you're feeling. And sometimes people say, I don't know how I'm feeling. Sometimes it's because you have lost your sense of self. So let's look at the first one is gaslighting. Now, it's when an abuser manipulates a victim to start doubting the perception or their experience. And this can make the emotions that are associated is confusion, and they get very anxious. They are unsure of themselves, and that makes them unable to regulate their emotion. The second one is belittling. When the abuser undermines the victim's self-esteem and confidence, it takes the form of insult, put down, talking to people and making them feel small. And what happens? The person feels worthless, feels helpless. The third one is withholding affection. When the abuser withholds affection, attention, or support from their victim, and that makes the victim feel isolated, lonely, and despair, and that can, stop the person from being able to regulate how they feel. Coercion is the fourth one, which is a form of manipulation where the person is using threats, pressure, or force to get the person to comply to their wishes. And then the last one is neglect. When a person deprives another person of basic needs, you're supposed to provide basic needs to someone, but you deprive the person of basic needs such as food, shelter, and medical care. That is a feeling of abandonment and can also contribute to trauma over a period of time. Now, what are the symptoms? How do you know that you are going through those you start feeling rapid heart rate, that's hyperarousal, where you're feeling a rapid heart rate, palpitation, you're feeling panic attack, nervousness, and that impacts on your self-image. You have a negative self-image. You kind of dissociate from situations, or you deny that something is actually happened that is wrong. And then you have avoidance behavior. You avoid certain places, you avoid certain people because they would trigger you and you don't want to be in those places. Insomnia, shame, lack of self-worth, helplessness, immobility. You're overwhelmed by the common everyday events. You can't just manage stress. Even the tiniest bits of stress becomes too much for you to manage. And of course, that would affect how you build relationships. Now, let's tie all this together. I brought up a case study, even though it's in a setting of a relationship, but I'm sure we can understand. I just thought it would be good for us to have a picture of what exactly all this subtle, and this is just a few. I didn't bring everything, there are a whole lot of them. So please, next slide. Amaka and Emeka have been married for 5 years and have a 2-year-old daughter. Emeka works long hours as a banker while Amaka stays at home to take care of their daughter. Over time, Amaka starts to notice that Emeka is becoming increasingly critical of her. He often makes negative comments about her cooking, cleaning, and parenting skills. He also starts to withhold affection and attention, only giving her attention when he needs something from her. Emeka's emotional abuse becomes more severe over time. He starts to criticize her appearance and belittles her in front of her friends and family. He also starts to isolate her from her friends and family, telling her that they don't understand their relationship and that they are not supportive of their marriage. As a result, Amaka starts to feel increasingly anxious and depressed. She starts to doubt her own abilities and feels trapped in the relationship. She feels ashamed and embarrassed to talk about what's happening to her with her family and friends. Have we ever seen someone experience this kind of problem? So let's discuss. What are some of the healthy coping strategies that you think Amaka can use to navigate her current situation and heal from the emotional abuse she has experienced? There's no wrong or right answer. I just thought it would be good for us to participate and just talk about what we think. So let's hear, what are the healthy coping strategies that you think that Amaka can navigate, or whatever you feel about what this story, just let's share. One, two people, please.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Church. Okay, I feel Amaka can read because reading has really helped me to overcome a lot of things.
Sorry, what did you say?
Read. Reading books.
Okay.
Books on self-awareness.
Okay.
That can help her know what she feels, and that can help her know that your problem is not her. The problem is actually Emeka. And she can also belong to supportive groups, community that supports you, like a book club, women's club, or parents club, and stuff like that. I think those are healthy healing habits.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning, church. Just to add to what she has said, Amaka also can look for an environment, enabling an environment to talk with Emeka, to tell him that this is what I'm observing. That was one. Then two, she also should seek for someone that Emeka respects. Maybe his pastor, maybe someone in their family, not to take family's issues out, but someone he respects. And this is what, after speaking with Emeka, this is what I'm experiencing, and it's really getting into me. So, just to add.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Please. Pastor K said she can do night vigil.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think she needs to try to remind herself of who she is, who she has been before getting married to him or being in that situation. And also, I feel she needs to get out more. She needs to go out more. If not, she'll be soaked in that place.
Thank you.
I would want to ask, it's a question.
Okay, please go ahead.
Would she consciously stay there and she's dying in that relationship? I don't know.
Okay, so
she's in a marriage and she's going through all this. I mean,
it's
does
difficult.
It happen that someone can be going through and
so it's difficult for you to understand or explain. So I'm going to talk from my own personal experience. I can relate with Amaka's story. First, Amaka doesn't have self-awareness. And that's because maybe Amaka has experienced something from childhood. And that has, for her identity was that marriage. The marriage was supposed to be like her saving grace that will make her whole, complete. So that's even so now she's here, the man, the Emeka that is supposed to be her savior, her strength, is now taking away what is left of her. Exactly. She feels that's her. That's who she is. And she's the problem. So when somebody, that's why I said there are different responses. There's a freeze. So I think Amaka was going through a freeze response. When you're frozen, your brain is frozen. Your frontal cortex that is supposed to be your reasoning mind, that is supposed to think, articulate, strategize, what do I do? It's not engaging. It's suppressed because someone is constantly abused. And it's not like she knows. That's the thing. I believe that if human beings knew better, they would do better. But if you don't know, that's why if you feel this, I also believe that when something is wrong with us, actually wrong with us inside of us, we know there's something wrong. Seek for help to unravel what is wrong, because that's the only way you can find out. I went through the same experience, And it took a while. Oh, I did prayers, lots of prayers. I did night fields. I did all kinds of things. But you see, someone said recently, said prayer is a weapon, therapy is a strategy. And it is so profound because when I started peeling back the layers of my life, I realized that I didn't even know myself. I couldn't even blame the other person so much and leave myself out of that blame. I needed to take responsibility of what I had allowed or given someone permission to do. So that helped me to start praying strategic prayers and taking steps towards where I wanted to be. And if you don't have that, if you are not able to make that commitment, and it's a very difficult journey, but it's a journey that you need to be committed to because without that, you can't get far.
Sorry, I have a contribution, and I'll come to you, Elder. So Emeka does not really need to be a bad guy for Amaka to feel that depressed rather. And I'll tell you this. I got to know how my wife was feeling when she got a job. For many years, because I was working, we needed to have a balance with the kids. And that made her stay at home, left her job, quit her job, and stayed with the kids. I didn't know that when I go to work, many times she will cry for most of the day just because she's depressed. I didn't know about it. And I wasn't a maker. So yes, I wasn't adding to the depression. But it is happening in our society where you understand that if both parents leave for work, the kids suffer. That needs to be discussed. How will people adjust? What support group do they need? How will they seek help rather? That needs to come out very clear. Because it is really eating deep into mostly women. Because they are the ones that were in the balance of scale. They are the ones that will probably quit their jobs and take up the parents' responsibility just because you want to have a stable home for the kids.
True. And culture doesn't, please. The culture doesn't really encourage us women to try for themselves. That's how it used to be because things are changing. So, like you said, one of the things is communication. She could have had that communication with you. I'm not feeling, very good that I've left my job. I need to do something. And I think that women, both spouses, whether men or women, because I also see a lot of men have struggled with marriages, issues in marriages. You need to understand yourself well enough and understand your need and accept yourself and communicate that need to your spouse. That's the only way because they are not God. They have their own, things that they're dealing with. But if you guys cannot sit down and communicate what you need, then there's going to be issues. So, and then what support group? So we have the church. I'm sure the church has different support group. And I think what the church needs to do is to empower the group or the leaders of the group to know these things, not just the spiritual part of it, but we need to understand the psychological part of it. There's so much information out there. You can get information that are related to, the group, like let's say the women group, that, that can address women issues or men issues or whatever, everybody has their own need. So I think that would also help. But thank you. I always say there are a lot of good men out there. So thank you for being one of those. Okay.
Good morning, church.
Good morning, sir.
So many makers. All right, good morning, church. I want to come from a maker's point of view.
Fantastic.
What could have made a lovely Emeka to suddenly turn to hating a monster Emeka? I think we should also think of what may have been happening in the office, what he notices when he comes back to the house, and how looking at it from both sides could have changed the situation. I'm just wondering because Mecca could not have just suddenly, for no obvious reason, start behaving so differently. Maybe he was also having pressures from your guy in the office. Also sorts of problems may have also made him to see it as a way to vent his own anger.
Okay, first thing, so we are just going to make assumptions because Emeka is not here, and there are different things. No, he's not Emeka. Oh. Okay, so first thing, Emeka could have been exposed to abuse as a child, and he has grown up to see abuse as a form of exerting his pressure as a man. Emeka could have been, he's working in an organization, a banker. He's seen other ladies, bankers, doing great things. And maybe Amaka here, no self-awareness. She probably was trying to please Emeka, but in pleasing Emeka was irritating Emeka, and Emeka was acting out. Now, did Amaka communicate how she was feeling to Emeka? We don't know. So it's possible that Emeka would even be acting in that way and not know that he's hurting Amaka. So there are several reasons.
Thanks. So indeed, it's a very interesting thing. And I hear people saying, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. I don't think it's about thank you. It's really about balance. The essence of this is not to establish that Emeka is right and Amaka is wrong. I think the essence is, do you know and understand your person? Are you self-aware? Because many of us, whether you believe it or not, I stand here now, you don't know the perfume I'm wearing. You can't smell it from where you are. But once I hold SIFON, I'm sure she suddenly entered my circle, and everything I carry, she begins to feel it. Amaka has her issues, Emeka has his issues. And I think in both cases, it really has to do with how they perceive themselves. Like she said, Emeka may have been abused. The thing about abuse is you have two outcomes. Either somebody begins to overcompensate in life, like she said, the person begins to fawn, or the person becomes an abuser. But that's all he or she ever knew. On the other hand, Amaka, she may have also been abused, and she's fawning, trying to make Emeka appreciate her. And the more she tries, the more he reads it wrong. And we live in a society, whether you like it or not. It's in the last 15, 20 years that children have been given room to begin to speak up. Am I making sense? Growing up, when you open your mouth, you receive a nice knock. You talk too much. Right? You ask a question, your parent tells you, shut up. I mean, let's be honest. When I was raising my kids, my wife and I kept talking about it. If they ask 200 times, let's try to answer 200 times. Because that way you don't kill their curiosity, you don't kill their desire to express, and so on and so forth. But many of us have never really expressed ourselves the way we feel. We've been acting a role. We started acting, and suddenly you are a married man in your home. You don't need to act for anybody. You are now the real you. So we can go on and on. For me, the take here is, as you listen to SIFON, listen to all of these scenarios, keep asking yourself, where am I struggling, male or female? And if you nick it, you will have not just marriage. There was something she said, they are unable to build relationships. So it's not just about marriage. And whether you believe it or not, if you're going to succeed on earth, you need relationships. God will never come down. But if you have not built healthy relationships, no matter how gifted you are, if you have money, somebody has to receive the money for the money to bring you value. If there's nobody to receive your money is useless. Have you gone to a market before and they say, I won't sell to you? It has never happened to you. What are we talking here? Then your money is in your hands. See what you want to buy. The owner of shop says, I don't want to sell. Praise the name of the Lord.
Thank you, Pastor K. So I'd like to also talk about emotions and memory. When we experience strong emotion, our brain releases neurotransmitters that enhance memory consolidation and retrieval. That is why people that experience emotional or traumatic experience would express it easily, or they would feel it and store up those memories. So emotions can actually distort our memory. So it's important for us to understand that how we feel also imprints long term on how we are going to react. Now, emotional trigger, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I was triggered. But I thought it was important to just explain what trigger is so that you would understand. Now, a trigger for me is like a stimuli that elicits an intense emotional response from an individual due to a past experience or memory that is similar to the current situation. Now, when we are triggered, what the emotion is trying to tell us is that there is an unresolved pain and it's calling for your attention to do something about it. I know last week someone said there are certain kind of people he doesn't like. And I said, there must be something that about experience that has triggered that. So you need to find out what it is and deal with it. We need to understand that triggers are very complex and we need a professional to unravel the complexity of it. Now, what causes emotional trigger? Past experience, negative experience, relationship dynamics like we can see in Amaka and Emeka, chronic stress, pain, illness, and unresolved emotional issues. Now, becoming aware of our triggers, you will be able to understand and respond to the trigger. You will learn to respond more constructively and in a healthy way, and that would reduce us being impulsive or negative. This can also better help us to regulate our emotion and reduce stress, anxiety, and improve our total well-being. Now, why is it important for us to understand our triggers? It will increase our self-awareness, increase our ability to regulate our emotion, enhance interpersonal relationship, and greater control of how we feel about ourselves, because human beings want to feel that they have some level of control over what they're doing and what is happening in their life. So your triggers, if you understand your trigger, then you will be able to have a greater sense of control. Now, how do we manage emotional dysregulation? Mindfulness, being in the present moment. We tend to live in the past or future. Now, we can learn from the past. That's what the past is meant for. And then from the lessons that we learn, we can apply it in the present moment. And we can also look at the future and plan ahead. However, it's important for us to live in the present, because in the present moment, you can check your thoughts, you can check your emotion, and then you can check your behavior and change them as need be. Taking deep breath intermittently is very important. When you find yourself in a place where you feel out of balance, if we listen to ourselves, we will know when we feel out of balance. One of the things we can do is take deep breath intermittently. It's like having a bath. That's how important deep breath. People, I think it's really understated, but we need to learn how to take deep breaths. Even when sometimes when I have to walk up and speak I still feel knots in my tummy, but when I take deep breath, it just releases me. What I'm sending to my brain is that I'm safe, I'm okay. And and your brain picks it up and helps you to feel safe. Sit with your feeling, name it. Don't be afraid of your feelings. Name it, because when you name it, remember last week we talked about secondary emotions and primary emotion. When you peel back what a secondary emotion of guilt is, then you are able to deal with it. Feelings that you don't experience stay trapped in your body. Reflective journaling. I always recommend gratitude journaling for people. It helps, especially for people that are always overwhelmed and feel like they've not done enough. When you keep a gratitude journal, you're able to see the Bible, the Bible, a song that says, count your blessings and name them. When you count your blessings, you realize that I've done a lot, I've come far, and you're more grateful, and you're able to reward yourself instead of being hard on yourself. So reflective journaling helps you to have a positive self-talk with yourself. You recognize what you have not done well or you're not doing well and find a way to change it. Remember what we said the first week. You can reframe that negativity to what you want and then speak to it and look for a Bible passage that will resonate with you and tie it to it so that it becomes an anchor. Engage in self-care activities. Now, I can't overemphasize this. This is very, very key. Get yourself a hobby, something that you love. Like our sister said, she loves reading. When you do something you love, you release the feel-good hormones in your system, and that works for you. Dopamine, serotonin, endorphin, and oxytocin. Those hormones, people buy it to take it to feel good. But we have it naturally that we can generate. All we need to do is engage in something that gives us joy. Whether it's exercise, hobby, whatever it is, just do what you need to do. Then finally, seek professional help if you're struggling with yourself. Seek professional help. Like I said, prayer is a strategy, but prayer is a weapon, but therapy is a strategy. Now, we also need to understand that different cultures have different way of expressing emotions. In Nigeria, we always feel that we need to raise our voice to exert the authority and let people know that we are serious. But if you travel abroad and you do that, they'll be thinking there's something wrong with you. So it's very important for us to understand that different people, different cultures express emotion differently. That will help us to communicate effectively with people and understand and appreciate people's diverse background and avoid misunderstanding. And it also shows that we are very rich and diverse in our human emotion. Finally, if you find yourself struggling with trauma, grief, or identity crisis, or you feel dysregulated in any way, you should seek therapy or counseling. Our contact detail is on the slide. And please, like I told Pastor K, I would give 30 minutes free sessions and then we can take it up from there. So thank you for listening. Thank you. We have 5 minutes, so we'll just take 1 or 2 questions. Yes, sir.
The anxiety cycle. You said, grief.
Grief.
So we should allow somebody to go through the grief cycle. And one of the stages is depression. Should we just sit by and watch somebody go through depression, which could cause further damage before he now maybe comes out of it? I don't know. I just want to.
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking. So I also said that what you need to do is let them know you're there with them. So let me just give a practical example. Someone is feeling depressed. They don't want to leave their bed. You can go stay with them, look for a movie, something interesting that will just take their mind. What you're trying to do is trying to put them from where they are without saying anything, because you don't know the right thing to say to that person that will get the person feel trapped or invalidate what the person is feeling. So what you can do is that someone is feeling depressed, they don't want to go out. You don't need to force them to go out. Go visit them, stay with them. There must be something that you know about them that they love to do. Bring that thing. It can be Ludo, it can be Scrabble, it can be anything. It can be a story. You just tell them a story. You know, before you know it, as you're talking about things that are not associated with what is going on or what they're experiencing, their mind suddenly starts moving away from the problem. And before you know it, they just start busting out laughing. I've experienced that so many times with my clients. And it's really an amazing experience. Just don't feel the need to push away how they are feeling. It's their feeling. Let them feel it. And with time, they will get out of it. That's why you just need to be there. Let them know that this is a safe space. I am here for you, and we will do this together. That's all they need to know. Thank you. Yes.
Don't worry, the mic is here already. Good morning. Good morning, and thank you, Sister SIFON, for this session. So there are stories of people who, at such times, they are going through emotional trauma or depression or whatever. They are vulnerable. Yeah. You have stories of people say they were taken advantage of when they were vulnerable. So how do we approach such situations so that people in the course of offering help, they don't become the predators or people at such times of vulnerability, their safety is also assured.
So that comes back, we have to go back to self-awareness. When you are self-aware, you're very careful the kind of people you have around you, because vulnerability is actually a part of connection, of building connection. So when you're self-aware, that's why I know most times I just keep talking about self-awareness, because we cannot over or understate it. Because if you expose yourself to people that don't have the right intention for you, they will use you. And you might not be lucky or blessed enough to have someone to stop that from happening. But if you start now to understand who you are and be able to surround yourself with the right support group, then I think that should reduce being taken for granted or something.
If I may just take us back to grief.
Yes.
How much time is healthy to process grief? Or is it relative and dependent on how long the person takes? Because I also feel that at some point, we should get worried about a person who stayed too long in grief.
Okay, so I mentioned that the cycle of processing it sometimes is not linear. They get to stage 3, they get back. So when you notice that it seems like a vicious cycle, you need to get professional help. That's one of the ways you can do it. But whichever way is different for different people. My dad died in 2016. It was just last year that I came to acceptance. That's 6 years after. Because what happened was that at the beginning of the grief, when he died, I was already dealing with some other things. So I shut down that part of it out of my life. I didn't even think about it. It was 3 years after my brother died that I now started going through the process. And then I was seeing a therapist, and that really, really helped me. I even think that it was because I was seeing a therapist that all those things started boiling out, and I was able to do. So it depends on people. But it's especially when the grief starts affecting your daily life, you need to do something about it. And sometimes it won't even come up until something triggers it. So it can be dicey. That's why just listen to yourself. We need to be more in tune with ourselves. When you're feeling that something is not going wrong, it's not going well, then you ask for help. That's the last question. We have 5 seconds. 4. Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much.
Pastor K. We have. Okay, please.
Okay, so how do you know an introverted person is going through a period of depression? Because they are usually down, they don't express themselves on a normal day, and you're just around that person. When do you know? At what point do you get to know the person is going through depression? I'll take myself, for instance. Some time ago, I had somebody around me. She's very, very introverted. You can be in the house from morning till night. She's not talking to you, 3 days, I noticed she was losing herself. Like life was literally leaving her. But she didn't say anything to anybody. It took me to go close to her to understand that she was very sick and she needed help. So at what point do you know an introverted person is going through depression?
You knew because you listened to her, you saw her, the way.
The person would have gotten into trouble before the 3rd day.
Exactly. So I'm just saying that's one of the things. You knew because you observed her. Another thing is that they don't want to get out of bed. They don't want to do anything. They just want to stay in bed. You know that there's something wrong. Especially, even an introvert person wants to go out, wants to walk, wants to do other things. But when they don't, all of a sudden they don't want to do anything anymore, then there's...
This person is like this.
I don't think we can debate it here. But the honest truth is very simple. It's down to your own emotional intelligence. If you care about people, you will know their moods, whether they are introverts or extroverts. So it's down to you being observant with people. Mothers, for example, their babies cannot talk. But they know when the baby is hungry, when the baby is uncomfortable, when the baby is sick. It's all about care. If you care enough, you will know, introvert or not.
Okay, very quickly. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sifon. It's been a very enlightening session.
Thank
you. Okay, I wanted to say something, just a contribution about when they talked about women being on the receiving end most of the time, depression and all that. They fall more susceptible to depression. I think it's because of the way society views, I think, African women, that they are not supposed to speak up. But I want to advise that boundaries, I'm very big on boundaries. If somebody does even as much as pinch you and you don't like it, speak up. You don't have to shout. Women, know your boundaries, stand by them. And how do you know your boundaries? Still self-awareness, know your values. And when somebody is crossing it, in my house, they know, even my kids, my 3-year-old boy knows, Mommy is not going to like this. Boundaries. Because if you keep letting people walk over you, before you know, you just fall into depression.
Well done. That's very interesting. And you know what you've done for your children? You're also teaching them how to set boundaries, because we need to start telling our children this story now, because there's a lot out there. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.